Royal Holloway, one of the 17 colleges and institutes that make up the University of London. She's 19 miles from the heart of the capital, 9,000 students, 23 departments, and has been visited by 2 of Britain's monarchs. She often lures people in with her Victorian showpiece, Founders Building. And with a building of this size and grandeur, it's really not surprising that she's hiding a few secrets.
Take the picture gallery, for example. While her great collection of Victorian pieces is hardly a secret, there are even more great works kept behind locked doors.
And here we are, on the East Drive of Founders, a spot traversed by thousands of students and staff members every day. But have they ever thought what's beneath their feet? And then there's this sign. If you aren't mesmerized by Founders when you first pull up, this is the first thing to greet you when you arrive on campus. It's just one of the many things around that reminds you that Royal Holloway isn't as she seems. Join me as I find out what's within these walls and underneath the pavement. I'm Diana West, and this is Hidden Holloway. There are many jewels in the crown that is Founders Building, and perhaps the best well-known is the picture gallery. The gallery holds the 77 paintings that Thomas Holloway acquired specifically for it, and includes works by Frith, Landseer, and Millais. At the time, Thomas Holloway spent an unprecedented amount of money, £84,000 on the collection, which is about £7.5 million today. And while Thomas Holloway's collection is stunning in and of itself, there is much more to the whole art collection of Royal Holloway than meets the eye.
Meeting me here today is Dr. Laura McCulloch, curator of the art collections at Royal Holloway.
So we are in the picture gallery, and the collection that's shown here are the purchases Thomas Holloway made specifically for the college.
Yes, these are the 77 pictures that he bought within just 2 years, between 1881 and 1882. And he was inspired to build the collection up because he had sent his brother-in-law over to Vassar, which was then the leading women's college in the world, said that they had a purpose-built gallery. So I think Holloway was feeling a little bit like he had a rival in Vassar and wanted to better them. So he bought all these paintings, but of course then had to find somewhere to put them, and this room really should have been the women's recreation room, but ultimately with such a big collection, this was the only space that could hold them. And I do think that this collection is partly an advertising ploy to get people to come to the college. He needed a kind of lure, especially in those early days. But this is really only about 10% of what we have. And in the 1980s, we merged with Bedford College, and that came with its own art collection.
Are there any specifically near here that we can go see?
Yes, actually, in the entryway, we've got 5 pieces from the Herringham collection.
Here we are in front of 5 pieces from the Lady Herringham collection. Can you tell me anything specifically about them?
Well, these pieces are all copies made by Lady Herringham herself of things that were then in the National Gallery, but much unloved. They're all artists who were working before the Renaissance, so they were known as the Primitives. And she was part of a big movement to try and create a much bigger appreciation for them among the British art-going public. Then went to India and copied cave paintings. They were Buddhist cave paintings that were deteriorating. And because she was a copyist, she was seen as the most capable person to do this. And I guess it was another rescue mission for her, a kind of art rescue mission.
And you mentioned that we received this collection from Bedford College.
They were lent it in 1911, and at the time her husband was the chair of council for Bedford College. So he lent her art collection to Bedford College, but also a few pieces to Newnham College. And when she died, they then were bequeathed to the colleges. But we have the lion's share. We also have her book collection and photographs of her trips to India, which include some, I think maybe the only known picture of her, which is really amazing.
Indeed. So we have that collection. Where is that hiding?
Most of it is hiding in a store. Most of it is works on paper, sketches, drawings and watercolours. And we also have furniture, which people don't really associate us with either. That's the student furniture from the bedrooms and their studies, and we keep that as a little capsule collection.
Could we check any of that out?
Absolutely. Well, this is the furniture store, and this is where I keep that capsule collection of furniture which came from the students' either bedroom or study. And so some of them, although they just look like little humble tables, are actually really important for the history. This particular table, every study had one of these tables, and the girls would use them every afternoon to have tea, which they would boil over the fire, and they had toast. And so this is kind of represents the social hub of the students' life in many ways. There's even a photograph where the students have taken one of these tables out to the grounds and they've set it up with a little tea table outside. So they obviously went on picnics too. Probably for most students, the most important piece of furniture would have been this, which is one of the desks. It allowed them to have their books there, they had space to write. In the photographs we see that they've decorated their desks with, some of them have Japanese fans, some of them have photographs. It really was the focal point of their studies, but I guess also their raison d'etre for being here at the college was to work.
And with the furniture as part of the collection, that sort of changes the name a bit for the whole thing. So what is the name of the official collection of Royal Holloway?
It is the Fine and Decorative Arts Collection. So these are the decorative arts, and they might be very humble and not made of the most amazing wood, but they are still a really good example of Victorian taste at that period, the late 19th century.
We've already learned about a pretty big secret hiding within Founders Building, but I hear that there's even a better one underneath. A secret tunnel built for lovers' trysts, maybe, or for the heating of the building. But I think you'll be surprised to discover that the tunnel is more than just heat. Can you describe the tunnel a bit?
This complex, the Boiler House complex, was connected to the main Founders Building, which is the better part, I guess, of about a quarter of a mile up the hill. It's connected via a brick tunnel that passes underground. The tunnel runs from this area up through the Moore Building complex, passes under the Windsor Building, passes under the courtyards of Founders East, through the middle courtyard, and then Founders West. And I also believe coal was transported via a tunnel system that we have up to Founders and burnt in open fires. The transport is said to have taken place with a small steam engine. I've no evidence of that, but certainly the rails of the carts that took the coal up to Founders are still in existence and can be seen up through the tunnel. If you move closer up to the tunnel towards Founders, there is evidence of a turntable up there where perhaps the carriages, the coal carriages, were turned around to go down some of the side tunnels. This current space was actually used for storing coal, as far as I know. So the light tubes that you see above on the false ceilings or in the ceilings, they were in fact the coal chutes where the coal was sent down. As the area got developed and went from coal burning, it then went through a stage of oil burning and then gas. This area then was transformed from a coal storage area to a tanked oil storage area.
We have now traveled the tunnel from Boiler House up across campus to Founders, and we are near the East Plant Room, so we're under Founders East. And Annabelle Valentine, the college archivist, is here to tell us about another purpose of the tunnel.
During the Second World War, this area was used as an air raid shelter for the students and staff of the college.
During the Second World War, London experienced heavy bombing by the German Air Force. The Nazi forces referred to it as Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War. It came to be known in Britain simply as the Blitz. In central London, citizens took shelter in the underground. And out here in Egham, residents of Royal Holloway had their own version of the underground.
So how would it all work? Can you take us through what it would be like to experience an air raid during the Second World War?
Yeah, so they had an air raid siren that would go off, and that would be your signal to go down to the tunnels. There's various things in the archives about what you should do straight away. The girls were advised, if they were close to their room, to go back and get their gas mask and their coat and make sure they were wearing sturdy shoes. And then further on throughout the war, several other memos come out saying that they should always take their gas mask with them if they're going out of the building. And if they're too far from their room when it goes off, not to go back and to walk as quietly as possible down into the tunnels. They were told to be silent until the door was blocked off in case there was any announcements that needed to be made. So it was very much hear the siren and then go.
Is there any other special preparations to make sure that the tunnel was acceptable for the fine young ladies of the Holloway?
There's documents in the archives that show the preparations that they did. So we know that they put seats in along the edges of the tunnel. They were along both sides and the centre was left as free space. They also made arrangements so that if there was an air raid and people did come down into the tunnels, that they would shut off the water and the steam pipes that ran through the tunnels at that time. And that was to ensure that there was no flood if the college was hit and the pipes were damaged. They didn't want to then flood the tunnels because obviously that's an extra danger.
Do you know how big the fear was with us being so far from London? Because wasn't London the main focus of the Blitz?
Yes, so we are kind of in outer London, or kind of greater London, but we know that bombs did drop at Runnymede, which is not too far away, so I think the threat was still very much apparent to the students.
2 secrets have been uncovered that directly link to the majestic Founders Building. And certainly there are other secrets hidden within her red brick walls. But what about Royal Holloway beyond her showpiece? All around campus there are little Easter eggs hidden, showing that there's much more to the history of Royal Holloway than just a girls' college 19 miles outside of London. Can you just give me a brief history of Bedford?
It was founded in 1849 at number 47 Bedford Square, and that is why it's called Bedford College. It was founded by Elizabeth Jesser Reed. There were I think something like 60 students to begin with, many of whom lived at home and just came in for classes. But it was the first institution founded for the higher education of women. I think in the 1870s, they moved to premises in York Way, which is near Baker Street. In 1912, they got a purpose-built site on the inner circle of Regent's Park, and they remained there until 1985. But it had a very distinguished reputation. It had an entrance exam to get in, and I think the people who got into Bedford felt that that was a distinguished place to be.
Could you please tell us a bit about yourself and your connection to Bedford College?
I joined Bedford College in 1965 as something called a tutorial fellow. And I joined the history department, which was a department of 9 people at that time. And I remained at Bedford College all my teaching life, of course in 1985 moving down to Egham with the college. So I felt as if I had a new job when we moved. It was quite a transformation of my life.
When did Bedford merge with Royal Holloway?
Well, it actually merged in 1985, but of course the discussions began in 1981. It was a very controversial time. There was a lot of debate and discussion. A lot of people were quite angry and upset at the thought suddenly that we had to transform our comfortable lifestyle and move into something different.
So what were the reasonings behind the merger?
Ever since the Second World War, really, at the end of the Second World War, there was a recognition that units of higher education had to be larger in order to accommodate research as well as teaching. Also, there was another driver, which was that there was a vast expansion in higher education. The existing institutions had to expand dramatically, and of course Bedford, sited in Regent's Park, on land which belonged to the Crown, which was leased, had very little chance of physical expansion. So Bedford was in a particularly difficult situation. It had no land to expand, and yet expansion was required and necessary.
How has Bedford been represented since the merger?
In a number of ways. A number of the halls of residence are named after Bedford principals, Tuke, for example. There's the Bedford Centre for the History of Women, which was set up, which houses the archive. I think there are a number of ways in which the college has tried, there's the Bedford Library, of course, as well, to hold on to its inheritance. But I think there was a period in which, perhaps after Dorothy Wedderburn, who was the principal of Bedford College, she was made principal, I think, in 1981, and she then became the principal of the new college. And I think while she was principal, the Bedford input was quite marked. But gradually it began to decline as more and more people came to join the college who never knew Bedford and had no consciousness of the double inheritance. But in the last 5 years or so, the college has, under the present principal and with the support of the Development Office and Public Relations, have suddenly realised that the Bedford inheritance is an important part of the whole college tradition. And so they have been reviving a consciousness of Bedford.
It's really not surprising that in almost 130 years of history, Royal Holloway has things hidden within her walls, underneath the ground, and even in plain sight. She's really not just a pretty Victorian building out in the burbs. And she's not even Royal Holloway. A massive art collection, a secret tunnel, and 2 colleges are what helped to contribute to make her world-renowned. If you ever find yourself on campus, look around and think about the little things. They are very rarely what they appear. I'm Diana West, and thank you for joining me on this first edition of Hidden Holloway.
Next time on Hidden Holloway, a heretic in the chapel, improperly labeled lampposts, a boog tube, the tale of the lounging lady without a home. Find out next Wednesday at 8 p.m.